Thank you very much, Josh, and of course, thank you very much to the new guys. It's awesome to have them here. They're a passionate bunch, Nate.
Yeah, man. This I think it's speak for a lot of us computer gaming nerds out there, and we say that you need a decent computer. You got to get your parts somewhere.
You know, I just did.
Yeah, exactly. I have to.
Now I'm just waiting for my own personal PC builder to put everything together, Nate. Where the bro love at? Where my PC at?
Eventually. Yeah, we had some time off after round of 16, but this next match, guys, is going to be, I'd say, a pretty interesting one. A lot of people like Polt. I think that Hart has a chance to take it, though.
Yes, it is. It's a fun match, also because they played against each other last year. It's a long time ago. There was WCS America Season 3 2013. And that was one of those series where everybody was talking about Polt's comeback potential, that he just does not die. Because in every single game he was behind. But Hart often back then is not really relevant to the current state of the meta and TvT or their skills. But I just remember that series. Hart was only focusing on attack upgrades, while Polt was also getting those armor upgrades. Yeah. And that's why he was able to stay alive. And often down 30, 40, 50 supply, was still able to hang in there like a champ, as Polt almost just run through a shot. It's okay, Polt, we would have forgave you.
You notice he's got some good reaction time there, which he's going to need against someone who can be as aggressive as Hart. We saw him open up with a lot of those gas first builds in his series. They just played against Neeb. Of course, it's just important to remind you guys, Major got sick. A bit of illness right before the match, so he has not been able to participate in this group, which does mean there's no losers match. The loser of this series, the winners match, will simply play against Neeb for the second spot out of the round of 16. The two winning players in this group will move on to the round of 8, where they'll be joining Bomber and Huck. Yeah,
of course, Bomber and Huck were able to qualify yesterday, and even though today is going to be a short day, don't be too sad. We're hopefully going to have two amazing TvTs, and let's not forget about next week, Nate. Next week, I think, is truly where WCS America will shine. Group A next week is going to be awesome with Hero, Scarlet, and of course, Igus as well. I can't wait to cast the good old Gimli Terran and our very own Violet, see if he's able to make it to the round of 8 for the first time in his career. And then, actually, he made it last season, but, right? Did Violet make top 8 last season? Or was it round of 16?
I know he made round of 16. Yeah. No. He beat. I remember he beat Major. We had the epic series with the draw.
But was that enough? I don't know if it was enough. Let's focus on the vetoes for now. Polt, of course, no stranger to the round of 8. He has done it so many times in his career. He will start off vetoing Nimbus, and his second veto will be a merry-go-round. Hart, on the other end, has vetoed Deathwing. QXC is very vocal about his dislike for Deathwing.
I mean, QXC and I were joking about this for the show, man. It is without a doubt the absolute worst map to play TvT on, because there are just so many different ways you can abuse things like that back path. But especially in the late game TvT, like you simply, if you're against someone who's very passive, it's almost impossible to break them due to the 4-base setup.
I do know, Nate, if I was Deathwing, I would feel hurt. My feelings would be hurt.
I'll take it for other matchups if you can pull some cool cheese off there. Yeah. But
so what are your overall thoughts going into this series? This should be an awesome TvT. We have two amazing players. I think Hart's TvT is not his best matchup. It's also not his worst. I think Protoss is his weakest. As some of you guys know, watch WCS America often. I'm a little bit of a Hart fanboy. He really turned me into one. But in the past, I wasn't at all. In 2013, I just kind of thought he's one of those Korean Terrans. Yeah, it's good, but he's not like that amazing. But oh boy, has he been fun to watch in 2014, especially his TvZ. But I also think his TvT is pretty damn good.
Yeah, Terran versus Terran is just a matchup that I think QXC made a really good point of earlier, something that we did not see a lot of in the last few months. There were a lot of tournaments you saw staggered towards the end. Maybe one or two Terrans could break through into that upper area, but it's just recently that it started to become a little bit more of a thing. And we've seen what's happened. Lots of really fast games. If that first series was no indication, believe me, I have a strong feeling that we have a much more likely chance that both players will go gas first in a lot of these games, as Polt has shown some crazy aggressive games. If you saw the finals of Battlegrounds Detroit, I mean, let's just put it out there. Polt has been on a tear.
Hart looks very intimidating, though. I totally agree. We can talk about Polt soon. Let's talk about Hart a little bit. Hart has definitely made some sort of a transformation, because in the past he was a little bit of a cheesy Terran, especially against Protoss. Even in this day and age, I don't think he's all that cheesy against Protoss. He pulls the SFV sometimes, but then again, who doesn't? You're not a true Terran until you pull the boys.
Yeah. Well, in Terran versus Terran, it's not quite as much of a thing, but he... what was it? Was it Hart versus Bomber? Who did we see that we had the craziness with like the proxy marauderness? Was that was last season, right?
That must have been Bomber against Polt then, no? Or Bomber Tasia?
For some reason, I feel like Hart's the only guy that would do something like that, but. Either way, it's a matchup where
I think you're right, because really Bomber did play against Hart. On Overgrowth you're talking about.
Yeah, on Overgrowth.
Yeah. Could have been. Anyway, now we take a look at Polt. Of course, Polt has won WCS America twice in his career already. He did it in Season 2 2013, and he was able to repeat that performance in Season 3 2013. 2014, he hasn't won a WCS Championship yet, but it's still been a pretty good year for him, like he said. Season 1, I think he made it into the final 8 before losing to his teammate Revival. And last season, he also made it to the quarterfinals, and back then, Hyun was too strong. But, you know, that's past. And Zerg, TvT is a little easier right now, I would say. It's still, of course, a very difficult matchup, and you still need to be extremely good if you want to mess around with the likes of Hyun. But it's a little more doable than playing on WCS.
Yeah.
With the old mines and the old toys.
That's a very good point. Terran vs. Zerg is really kind of steered away from, I think, the crazy Roach play, at least to some extent. I've seen a lot less of it. But you're right, Polt's had a pretty solid year. But Hart has always been consistently strong. It's just this is like the year of Hart macroing and really grinding out the longer games. For Terran versus Terran,
he splits, man. He has been splitting armies, Nate. Every now and then when I dream about StarCraft, I still see those splits against Shigua on Frost.
I feel like Hart looks at the rest of the group, he's like, man, I really hope that Scarlet and Jaedong all advance. Like, I just want to play TvZ all day, baby.
Yeah, we can talk about this a little bit now. It's often speculating when you say, like, if this player wins WCS America Season 3, then he can still make it to BlizzCon. Look at the cheeky smile. And that often is not super relevant, because then we know that it's like most likely that he's not going to be able to do it. You know, if he has a dream run, you could say quarterfinals. But with Hart, in a crazy world, I can see him win WCS America Season 3. His TvZ is definitely good enough to win WCS America Season 3. TvT, well, this is the ultimate test. He looked good against Neep, but Polt, of course, a much more experienced player. Neep looked a tiny bit nervous as well, like QXC pointed out, a couple of questionable decisions here and there. But if Hart has the run of a lifetime, I really do believe that he has what it takes to win WCS America Season 3, and it would be amazing to see him at BlizzCon, especially in a TvZ matchup, because I think that's truly the stage where he belongs.
Yeah, I mean, let's just look at how Terran's been performing overall in the last month or so. Terran versus Protoss has definitely started to swing a little bit in Terran favor. A lot more matches being won in that area. So, with his Terran versus Zerg being as good as it is, TvT is that knife fight type matchup right now, where it can be very difficult to call who's going to take a game, because it comes down to the smallest little bits of control, especially when you have these super small maps like Overgrowth, where those gas first builds, man, these two trains run into each other very quickly.
Hey, and did you know that once upon a time Polt was in a 3-man group already as well in 2013 in WCS America Season 1, I believe it was, back then in New York, and he was actually eliminated in the 3-man group in the round of 16. I didn't double check this, so I'm not 100% sure about who was the third player in the group, but I know that Alive was in that group, and it could be that Ryung was the other Terran, because I know that Ryung made it in top 8 Season 1, even top 4. So, even though Polt, of course, you know, he's had an easy route so far, getting a default win in his first match, because Major is not here, that doesn't mean that he's qualified yet, because he's been in the same boat before, and back then, Nate, he wasn't able to make it to the round of 8.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see who can grind this series out, because Neeb is still waiting in the ranks for the loser of this match. And our first player in the bottom left position of Overgrowth, sporting blue and representing Cooler Master Storm, he is Polt.
Polt's opponent is, of course, a red Terran spawning on the right top side of Overgrowth. He is representing Axiom. He has turned me into a fan, and perhaps after this season he can turn you into one as well. It is hard.
Yeah, Hart's been a very cool story to follow. Both of these guys have cool stories for 2014. I will say that Polt did a really good job of tying up a lot of loose ends that he's had in the last month or two, of being able to win the Battlegrounds of Detroit. Most of the second place finishes he had this year were in Battlegrounds events, so he qualified for the grand finals of that tournament, which will be taking place just after the round of 16 concludes, actually.
Yeah, it's just like 9 or 10 days away. How crazy is that? That's going to be the ultimate test for Polt before BlizzCon. He's not going to get a bigger task than Battlegrounds DC, that's for sure.
Yeah, the player lineup there is looking ridiculous. But this guy, Hart, man.
Got a cool tweet coming in as well. The night is dark and full of Terrans. Yes. Can't disagree with that. Even though it's still afternoon over here, but if it's Europe, then it's truly night.
It is. You are watching Terrans in the middle of the night, and these games are certainly fast and furious. Surprisingly enough, both players are opening up with a Reaper. It's not going to be quite that gas first, and I only say it's surprising because I expect to see gas first. I consider gas first standard right now in Terran vs. Terran, about as standard as any build can be. But anything else that's chosen must be because the player feels comfortable using it against a gas first opening.
Well, we are going to see two Reapers meet in the middle of the map. We saw Hart being able to pick off that first Reaper of Neep on King's Young Station. How big is that, Nate?
It's huge, given the way that those builds panned out. There's no reason why the Reapers should actually end up in a fight on this map, because if you take that risk to try to fight Reaper versus Reaper and you lose, unless you build a second Reaper like Hart is doing right now, you put yourself in a really risky position. But Polt's actually gone straight for his reactor, so it's math, right? You end up with just one less. You have one Reaper versus two, and you have to wait so long for this reactor to finish.
I mean, this does mean that Polt is going to have to be very, very careful with his only Reaper. Like, he can't go on a crazy adventure and somehow lose it against the two Reapers of Hart, because then even two Marines for Polt is not going to be enough to push those Reapers away. But we can see that Polt is taking a very defensive position with his Reaper now, just keeping everything at home, and he'll just wait and see what Hart will throw at him. Curious. Two Reapers are making their way to the main base though. With the two Marines, I know Polt will be fine, but if the Reaper jumps down now again, it could still get a little tricky.
Yeah, I mean, if he can just engage these Marines head-to-head by themselves and keep the Reaper out of the equation, there's a lot of damage that can be done by just using the health regeneration. He does want to make sure that none of his Reapers get low enough for the single Reaper of Polt to kill, but Polt's playing this pretty defensively. He's going to go straight over to Hellion production. And Hart is actually going to go right up to fast siege tanks. And this tech lab could also eventually be swapped onto the starport, but maybe we're going to see some of that fast tank drop play, which is also very popular in TvT right now.
Or just putting tanks next to the natural, which is also pretty damn popular on Overgrowth.
Yeah, there's a lot of aggressive plays you can make on Overgrowth and Terran vs. Terran.
I feel this is one of those maps where it's often good to be the Terran that's attacking first, because you often don't even have to overcommit for anything to get some damage done. If you get a couple of tanks close to the natural and you delay mining for a bit, or maybe shoot down in a refinery, that's all stuff that you can work with in this matchup.
It's like UXC was mentioning earlier, it's all about positioning, and this Reaper manages to get itself in a nice position to see Cloak Banshee on the way. That factory will not be used for anything like siege tanks. He's going to go build a Widow Mine with it. And Polt's going to get a medevac, which I really like because his Hellion opening gives him enough flexibility that if he can just get some of these bad boys inside of Hart's base, he can get a lot of damage done very quickly for cheap.
Yeah, especially if that first Banshee from Hart makes his way across the map. We do see that the Reaper eventually gets picked off, but this is still dangerous. We're already looking at 6 Hellions for Polt. Now the Marines are making their way across the map as well. There is a Widow Mine in the main base of Hart. We have to keep a close eye on that. I'm not sure he's going to burrow it below these SCVs, I guess. It's very important that I think that the Banshee should stay at home for a bit, or would you say just send it across the map and see what happens?
I mean, the Banshee can help defending this, but really...
I would use it to defend.
The Banshee kills things so slowly that it's also kind of tricky. I do like that he's trying to drop the Marines on top of this. If he kills that Banshee, just the Marines are going to have a really hard time against the Hellions. Polt actually takes a couple shots against the bunker. Not sure how I feel about that. But now he's dropping inside the main. These Marines have to divert their attention. Oh, he's trying to use the splash on the Widow Mine. He does!
And he does
against the Marines. Just great control from Polt. Running back up in the main, and his Marines are unloaded.
This looks very, very bad for Hart right now. I'm not sure how he's supposed to get those other Marines into the main. He does have his tank. His tank just sieged, or just popped, and he's going to be able to siege it next to the command center immediately. So he gets a couple of volleys off on these Hellions. But still, he's taking quite a bit of economic damage. He's already down 4 or 5 workers, and he still has to worry about this medevac and these Marines over here.
Yep, that Widow Mine cooldown is about to run out. I like he's just parking himself on this ramp. He's like, yeah, I can keep killing stuff. I'm not really concerned here. He's like, I don't really need to move as long as I'm killing something. And that starport would be would be a real, almost feels so silly to say this, but it would almost be like a stupidly good pickup. Like, that's just not something you ever lose. Polt's not going to risk it.
I don't think I have seen a game where you can pick up a starport at the 9-minute mark with just a heli, or just a couple of Marines and a heli, and that doesn't really happen.
No.
Still really good Marine movement overall by Polt. He kept this drop active for so long, really stayed around a little longer than I think normally you should, but he was able to just stand on the edge of that Widow Mine.
Drop, though, like the two tanks are in such a horrible position to defend against just a simple frontal assault that I'm starting to get really concerned. Polt could drop this behind the mineral line of the natural. He could just put it by this bunker, and hard. Need to get your tank closer, siege that bad boy up.
Another medevac is making his way across the map as well. If Hard is able to pick up on what is going on, we see that one Marine's moving out. The Marine actually does not spot the army of Polt. Man, give that guy some binoculars. It'll make Hard's life a lot easier, Nate.
Yeah, okay, he's going to go for that behind the natural play. I do like this. Without Vikings, without a Banshee of any kind, there's not really anything that Hart can do to get this off of him, since there's nothing to push the medevac away, which means that Polt can just park his medevac here with impunity. There's nothing that Hart can do to stop this at the moment. He just has to wait. He could try to throw a Seeker Missile, but just one isn't going to be enough to actually kill those tanks.
And Polt could see that coming. He could even still pick up the tank as well.
Yeah. It's a non-issue right now, and Hart is just getting brutalized. Look, he drops his, he wants to place the Seeker so that his siege tank can also kill it, but not enough. That tank gets picked off, and Polt, okay, does lose one of his tanks. Hart, good repair, but even that tank will still die, and now there's actually nothing to stop Polt from just dropping all of his Marines into that natural if he wanted to get super
Hart
ballsy.
has one more thing that's making his way down the ramp now, but he has already taken so much damage. He's not able to mine from half of his natural, and there is nothing that he can do on the other side of the map because he just simply doesn't have the units for it. This tank from Hart is actually going on a crazy adventure. It will get it picked off, so that's kind of nice.
He just walks in unsieged. Polt's like, no man, I'm going to drop right all over this siege tank. And in the time that it takes to unsiege, it dies. The simple fact
Hart doesn't have enough at home now.
Yeah, there's just too much here for Polt. And both of these players have stim now. You have more Marines, you have medevacs, you've got stim. Is there anything else that you need to crush an opponent like this? No, he kills a good couple of workers, he pulls back. He's feeling very comfortable because, as you mentioned, Hart can't leave his base.
Yeah, it's been a beautiful TvT so far from Polt. Almost flawless. Picked off 19 SCVs already.
And Polt has a third command center.
It's 57 workers against 39. He has a third command center. He had so much map vision. He knows everything that the Hart is doing, that Hart can potentially do as well. And even the army supply is going to snowball out of control. It's 67 against 57 now, so that's still relatively close. And we have seen comebacks on Overgrowth, but this is just not really a position that Hart... Like, what do you do if you're Hard? I'm trying to look at the best move for him, but I'm not even sure what it is.
He's close in Marine count, but not. He's behind in both tanks and medevacs, and those are the most important units for straight up fights. The sensor tower and turret ring that Polt is building in his base makes it borderline impossible to drop into Polt. So Hard just, like, he can run around with these little packs of Marines all he wants, but Roddy, if he wants to get back into this game, he needs to just slow everything down as much as possible.
Yeah, just sit on two bases for a while, eventually get a
try
command
to grind it out. Like, I don't think there's any way that you play from behind and try to attack into Polt and catch him out of position, because Polt's setup is just too good right now to be caught off guard. Look at his army. Like, he's not going to... No, 16 Marines aren't going to do anything against this.
And even a drop in the main, like you said, is so difficult because of these sensor towers and also because of these Marines that are scattered around the map. That's very well done by Polt. Just a single supply here and there is really not going to hurt you in a big engagement, but just one Marine that's able to spot two potential medevacs. Do you think Hart is maybe going for a Doom drop? I guess that would be a play. If he picks up everything and flies everything into the main base.
That's going to be his. That would be the only play. Polt has a Viking on the left side.
Yeah, he has a bunch of Marines, but if you fly in with 6-7 medevacs full of units, then that is still a potential comeback maneuver.
With all the units that Polt has patrolling in his main right now, I think Doom drop is basically just him. It's like this is basically him committing suicide in this game. Like, there's nothing I don't think he can do aggressively.
A straight up attack is not going to work, though.
No, I mean, unless Polt doesn't siege his tanks and move commands into Hart's army, which is unlikely. Yeah. Doesn't typically happen in TvT, Roddy.
They will be even in upgrades in just a matter of seconds, so that's the only thing that Hart has going for himself, that he's not behind. He will be behind again in roughly 150 seconds, but maybe maybe he's able to somehow force a fight soon. Because up to this point, Polt has been investing a lot in additional SCVs and additional infrastructure, while Hard has been doing nothing else than pumping out units, which actually gives him an army to work with. He has slightly more Marines. He's only down a little bit in army supply, but every second that goes by is a very good second for Polt.
Yeah, well, the thing is, eventually, it's going to, we're about to reach this point where both players are maxed out, and then
that's good for Hard, because then Hard has a bigger army. But he needs to decisively win the fight, because if it's a standoff, then it's very good news for Polt. Because let's not forget about those 2-2 upgrades that are now halfway done, so it will only take 90 more seconds. There we go. We do see all of these medevacs being loaded up.
And then there's the scan. Look at all these Marines for Polt. He's like, come on over.
He has missile turrets as well.
Like, come on over, baby. No, thank you.
He's going to be able to drop 60 Marines in the back of the third base of Polt, though. There is a tank there. There are actually a lot of tanks, but not every tank is in range of these Marines. So this is mildly frustrating, but not the end of the world.
Yeah, he loads the medevacs again. He's like, all right, let's make it work. The medevacs are going to move through into all these missile turrets. He's not scared. Polt's Marines, some of them are here in position. He does need to pull a lot of his other forces back. The drop has been able to plan itself. Polt has a big counterattack moving towards hard space, though.
Yeah.
And I think Polt has enough units to prevent this from actually being a base trade. He's just going to lose a lot.
Polt could even sacrifice his main and just stabilize on the other two bases, while his counterattack is dealing so much damage as well on the other side of the map. We take a look at Hard's main base. He is losing every single Marine that just spawns. He's going to lose these add-ons. There's a lot of DPS in this +2 Marine army for Polt. And yes, Hard might be able to shut down the main, maybe eventually the natural as well, but he's not going to be able to kill 3 bases in the same time as Polt will be able to pick up these 2 bases.
And Hard's lost all of his tech. He just has a couple barracks. His command centers have been sniped by Polt. And there's nothing left. There's no production in the main. At least Polt still has some production.
Big fight in the natural right now of Polt. Polt is moving forward. He just wants to crush the forces of Hard.
With those, with the upgrade advantage he has, it's not that difficult for him to do that either.
He took a lot of unanswered damage because there were a couple of tanks shooting at all of his Marines. So eventually Hard will sort of stabilize, but only has 12, 14, 16 Marines left. Against all these tanks of Polt, it's very unlikely that Hard will somehow find something to work with.
Yeah, the biggest problem right now for Polt, even though like he still pretty much got this game in the bag, is you lose so many of your barracks. He only has 3 right now, and you look at Polt's money. He's banking a lot, but Hard's just gonna try to crack this army. Not enough, and GG is called. Polt takes the first map in this winners match.
It all came down to that very first initial poke. Of course, the Reaper Scout was awesome because he saw that there was a Banshee on the way. Then these 6 Hellions and 8 Marines, and just thought it was beautiful execution of that early game pressure. He had his Marines dancing on a very thin line of death. Like on the left side there was that Widowmine about to shoot at them. On the right side there was a tank sieged up. But he found a very sweet spot to keep those Marines active for as long as possible. He picked up 2, 3, 4 additional SCV kills next to the 5 or 6 that he already killed early on. And he was incredibly far ahead after that.
Yeah, you know, Terran versus Terran right now is all about the early game. It's all about the first 10 minutes. I think it's the majority of games currently are decided in the first 10 minutes of TvT because of how strong these pokes, how well refined Terran players have made these gas first builds, or you know, these pokes with the medevacs early on. They're so fine-tuned to hit every possible weakness that defending that is really just the most important thing. And as we can see here, Polt,
that Banshee as well.
Yeah, he found that place. He lost that Banshee, which is a huge amount of damage output. The Hellions can run past the bunker, and just Marines are going to have a hard time with this.
Polt just did everything right here. This Hellion is soaking up the Widowmine shot, dealing a lot of splash damage to those Marines. Before this even happened, he was already able to pick up this Banshee, and after this, he's just in a phenomenal position, and he just did so much economic damage. I really like the follow-up push, too, with the tanks behind the natural. That's always smart, but that's even smarter when you're already ahead, because the last thing you want as a player who took some economic damage is to take more economic damage. You just want to stabilize and get things going for yourself, because just defending is often not going to cut it.
Nope. Simply not enough. The next map will be Catalina. This map is another map. Well, there's so much open airspace. There's so many places that you can hide.
How likely is it that we are going to see the Raven into double medevac, double tank drop on this map? Because it looked extremely strong when I saw that build multiple times at the Intel Extreme Masters in Toronto.
Yeah, it's strong. I feel like I've been seeing a lot less of it recently, or at least the rush to it. The tank drops are just kind of becoming a part of every build at this point. But I think there's potential for a straight opening into that. It would probably come from Polt in this game, but we'll have to see. As on the left side of the map, we do have our Red Terran, who's down 1 map. He loses this map. He will go up against Neeb once more from Team Axiom. He is Hart.
And Heart's opponent is, of course, a blue Terran player, representing Cooler Master Storm. He's spawning on the right bottom side of Catalina. Give it up for Polt. Other than Season 1 of WCS America 2013, Polt has made it into the Final 8 every single season. That is incredibly impressive.
That is pretty
ridiculous.
damn good. Definitely not an easy thing to do. Both of these players, by the way, are going to go gas first. On this map, it just makes a lot of sense. Maps like Catalina, maps like Merry-Go-Round really lend themselves to these build orders because there's just so many different areas you can drop that a medevac can fly in from, a Banshee can fly in from, even a Raven for some weird auto turret harass, that it's impossible to cover every angle, which means there's always an opportunity to catch your opponent off guard, to get a good army position on them with a fast drop.
Have you been messing around with that build, Nate? Because that seems like the type of build that if you watch one of these games, you're like, yeah, I want to try it. And I really wonder how you've been doing with it.
The tank drop?
Mm-hmm.
I personally still really like the gas first into the 3 Hellion, 6 Marine drop. That's still my thing. If you can elevator into the main base, I think on this map, maps like this in Merry-Go-Round, I love to do it on because there's so many different areas where you have to build your supply depots as a Terran in order to cover it, to catch it coming. Like, just look at the amount of black darkness in Polt's base or Heart, like in their vision around the edges. There's so many different places that you could try to jump in from that it makes it's not really feasible to see everything. And if they do have their depots spread out, then that means you could actually just run Hellions up their main ramp, and then usually if they expand, they don't have enough units to defend, and you just kill them anyway.
You know, I totally agree with you, and I don't really want to disagree with you when it comes to TvT, Nate. But I casted these games between Bunny and Polt was doing the opening that you're talking about now, and he did a lot of economic damage, and I was like, man, this build is so good, I'm surprised Bunny wasn't ready for it. But even after losing like 8 to 12 SUVs, he just counterattacked with the Raven and those 2 tanks and those 2 medevacs, and he was still able to win, despite taking so much economic damage, which really made me feel like, wow, this is one hell of an opener in TvT.
It's all about the follow-ups, too, when you put yourself in a situation like that, because if you're gas first versus gas first, and one of you rushes up to an expansion, and the other one is like you open up Hellion into Banshee, suddenly sometimes you just don't have anything to deal with that because you were expecting both of you to go into some sort of macro build, and if you think that your opponent is, and sometimes those tank pushes can kill you, but I think it's holdable. It's just tricky. Like this map especially, like you said earlier, just makes it almost impossible if you don't have everything in the right spot.
SUV came close to seeing the starport, but he didn't come close enough. It's once more going to be a cloak opening for a Heart this time. I'm a little bit surprised. Kind of hope to see a Raven opening out of him. But it's going to be cloak Banshees for now. Polt is doing what you love to see, at least to some degree. He squeezed in a Widow Mine.
Yeah, Widow Mines generally aren't bad.
I wonder what's the next unit going to be.
If a Widow Mine splashes on SCVs, then the SCV is only 1 hit away from just dying to a single Marine shot. So
this is a slightly different variant that Polt is doing over here. He's not really producing the same amount of Hellions as we normally see.
This is a defensive build because he wants to expand pretty quickly. Heart, on the other hand, has not yet committed to any type of expansion. He could very easily build another Banshee. He could go straight into tank play. Maybe probably build an add-on with the factory and keep pumping out Marines once that mine is done. But this Banshee is going to determine a lot of where he wants to go.
That Hellion is actually a little bit frustrating. There are Widow Mines for both players over here. They're burrowing in range of each other. I would love to see Widow Mines kill Widow Mines. Unfortunately, it's not happening, Nate. Yeah, this is tricky for Heart. Heart doesn't have the same amount of units. He's bringing the Banshee back. Wow.
Yeah, and that means his aggressive potential also goes out the window. There is a lot of cute micro that you can do with Marines against Banshees if you have a medevac. The picking up and putting down of units. Keep in mind that Widow Mine is about to come off cooldown.
I almost feel that Heart forgot about it. It's kind of hard to spot on this map on Catalina. Sometimes there are great spots immediately already. He's sending the Hellion in position, or is a single SUV, so he's still aware of it.
Yeah.
What a bro. Took one for the team, like a champ.
Yeah, well, better than losing anything else, that's for sure.
If I'm going down, I want to see my friends go with me, man. It's less lonely.
That's not a very team-friendly thought process there, Kev.
Hey, one for all for one, man.
Well, this Banshee won't be able to get anything at all, as missile turrets are already in place. Vikings, Marines, everything you need, baby. It's maybe, I guess, get some scouting done.
That's one of the consequences, of course. If you open up with a Cloak Banshee, but you use it for defensive purposes, so you take a little bit less damage on your own side, but it's very unlikely that this Cloak Banshee will get a whole lot done on the other side of the map because Polt had an additional 60-70 seconds to prepare for this Banshee. So obviously if you give Polt extra time, he will always be ready. Most of the time he's already ready. Polt's one of those guys that if he says that he's born ready, you believe him.
Polt's mine is still alive, by the way, in hard space. It's not like I should win. That's a bit
like out of range of everything to shoot at though.
Yeah, I mean imagine the AI in it, because those SCVs go in range at the refinery and then they enter and then they're like not targetable. So the mine's AI is just like blowing up right now. The computer inside of it doesn't know what to do.
The mine is like, wanna shoot? No, don't shoot. He's having an argument with himself. Don't we all do that every now and then? Yeah. I love having conversation with myself, Nate. I find the other person I'm talking to very intellectual.
That's a beautiful story, Roddy. His Banshees in the natural finally finds a little bit of room to make some headway in this map, which is good. Hart definitely does not want to drop down 2-0. He's going to put up as much of a fight as possible as he's now securing his expansion. And it's not an orbital command just yet. He did get a Raven and kill that mine, so that's nice. I don't think that mine killed anything else afterwards.
So I mean, at the end of the day, Polt is a little bit ahead. He definitely did some economic damage early on with his Marines and his Widow mine. He didn't take too much damage from this Banshee, which is still annoying though. And this time actually gets some work done, getting 2 SCVs and a little bit of lost mining time. That's the kind of stuff that Hart is looking for to completely even things up. As now both players have lost 7 SCVs. Of course, Polt's expand was a little bit quicker, so he's still ahead by 4 or 5 workers. But this is a position that I think Hart can start working with soon. If he just makes it through the next 2 minutes of this game, which we know is kind of dicey in TvT in this day and age.
Yeah, that's the medevac count looking like 3 for Polt. So with the number of tanks that he has, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to go for a big push. But it's actually going to be Hart now with 2 tanks, 8 Marines. He's got his Raven, his Viking. But this is too late in the game, I think, to make this push. Like it's a fun attack.
Yeah, Polt has 4 tanks already.
There's way too much on the map for Polt. Unless he gets caught out of, like, he'd have to be brutally caught out of position, which is why he's sitting on his ramp.
I mean, Hart used a very different variant as well, right? Because normally they don't go cloak Banshees before this. Normally it's straight up to a Raven and then into 2 tanks, 2 medevacs and just fly across the map. He opened up with cloak Banshees and he took some economic damage. That's why this potential drop is arriving so much later than it could have done.
Yeah, like I said, it turns out that a lot of Terrans have been doing this, like at least that I've seen on ladder, and I do myself. You do something else and then go into this fast drop, because otherwise the other guy might just make a fast tank and try to hold on. I think if that Banshee catches Polt off guard or kills a couple SCVs the first time that it shows up, then you can soften up your opponent enough for the follow-up drop to kill them.
It's still possible.
Could still do a lot of damage.
Yeah, exactly. The only thing that needs to happen is for Polt to just want to move out, and the moment he decides to move out, that's right when Hart drops into his main, and Polt's going to change his mind, has to retreat, has to go back into his main base. Then he will take a lot of economic damage, and it sort of seems like this is exactly what's happening. There is a Banshee in the middle of the map that is going to spot these Marines from Polt that are leaving the natural, and this is probably the moment that Hart wants to go for it immediately. There is no tank immediately in range of this, so this is annoying. I'm not sure how much damage it will really do, but frustrating for Polt it definitely is.
Yep. Yes, he's forced to miss a little bit of mining time. These tanks actually get in range, and a Seeker missile thrown onto where the tank was. Not terrible. Throws an auto turret there too to help soften these forces, so the drop will get stopped. The delays mining. Stim is done for Hart. These Marines can't really get too much more.
I would have loved to see those Marines work on those idle SCVs. Oh! Wow. That
was close.
That was a bumpy ride. There was a lot of turbulence on that flight, Nate. If I would have been in it, I would have been holding your hand. Nate, hold me.
I'd probably sleep through that, man. I'm used to that at this point. All those small airports. 3rd command center is on the way for Polt, so he will have once again that nice economic position. It looks like Hart just wants. I wonder if he's really going to grind this out on just 2 bases again, like on the last map. He's like, screw it, man. I don't want to take thirds. Not in this matchup. I'd rather just drop tanks all day.
He doesn't have to do it at all. What is possible is that he's indeed going to pump out as many units as possible on 2 bases, then just set himself up in a good position, try to contain Polt, and then go up to 3 bases behind that. That even when his 3rd command center / orbital is going to be a lot later, there's a good chance that he will be able to put it on location a lot quicker than Polt is in the long haul.
Yeah, definitely possible.
That would be a play that I would kind of like to see from him. I think it would make sense.
I wouldn't be too upset with that. Medevac boosts away. Just slightly more units here for Hart. Polt's like, alright, back it up.
I actually think Polt had more units there. They were just positioned in a very awkward.
Some of his units were a little bit away from that force. And now combat shield is done for Hart too, which is really nice.
Don't want to fight combat shield Marines when you don't have combat shield on your own.
Polt does have +1 attack though. +1 is not finished up for Hart yet. So Polt should be ahead on upgrades, and she's also about to finish up his armor. Hart is...
I'm a little bit confused now by what is the exact plan behind Hart's movement, because he still didn't drop that third command center. He doesn't really pull all the units out of his main base either. There's a chance that perhaps he thought he was further behind than he actually was, even though he was a little bit behind after that early game skirmish.
I mean, Hart has a pretty disgusting number of Marines.
He has a massive army supply lead. He's up 30 army supply in this phase
pure
of the
Marines.
game.
He has 66 versus 37. This is a really scary army. But the problem is, siege tanks can still mitigate all of that. Like that Marine count difference means absolutely nothing if Hart fights into Polt siege tanks without his own tanks. Like that's just not... It's not a smart thing to do to run into your opponent's siege tanks.
Yeah, Hart is moving all of the forces out of his main base now as well. Before he left a lot behind in his main. I think he was worried about a potential drop from Polt. Now he's pulling pretty much everything. So the only 4 tanks that he has are rolling across the map. All those Marines are rallied across the map. And this is where it has to happen. Hart has to make something happen over here. Because if he doesn't kill one of the bases or doesn't win a decisive fight, he is going to be incredibly far behind in a minute or two.
Yeah. The sensor towers are also making it really nice for Polt. I like this actually. Those 2 Marines, he sees them, he tries to pull the army away, and now he wants to expose the natural.
Go for the natural. Tanks are out of position.
Tanks aren't siege, but a few in the back are. Polt is gonna just go for this fight. The spread here for Hart is actually really nice.
And the Marine count is ridiculous, like you said. 70 Marines right now for Axiom's Hart against the 44 of Polt.
It's really nice that Polt has tanks left behind in his natural, though. Keeping his army split up definitely worked to his advantage in this fight.
So what do you do now if you're a Hart? I think he has to ambush the third.
He's got to bum rush it eventually because he doesn't have his own third base. There's no plan B here for Hart. Like, I guess his main is almost mined out, so he could lift
plan
off.
A, B, and C.
He could lift off to his third, I guess. Some Marines running into the third of Polt from behind. They're going to focus on a couple SCVs, which is nice.
I mean, Polt is forced to keep his additional reinforcements now in his natural as well, but the natural is not that far away from the third. So even if Hart decides to bomb rush this location, then I think Polt can just stim his Marines forward, and he won't be too late to the party to save that orbital.
Yeah, well, there comes the next wave from Hart. Now it's time to see if he can break Polt. I think Polt is set up about as well defensively as you can really want to be. Like, there's
those two tanks that either spawned or maybe one of them spawned and the other one was left behind in the natural. That really saved the game for Polt. Otherwise, Hart could have just gone for the natural. He's gonna go for the third base, but I'm sure that Polt is gonna stim all of his Marines forward as quick as possible.
Yeah, I mean, he does run into some tank fire. Polt having to fight on both sides makes things tricky, but the spread and being able to hit from 2 sides definitely works out quite nicely, as Hart does not have enough Marines left over to overwhelm either one of these positions. And
that's not upgrades, Nate. 2-2 is about to finish up for Polt as well, and he's still severely outmining Axiom Hart. I'm really worried for Hart.
Oh yeah, 2-2 versus just +1 attack. Yeah, that's... These Marines from Polt are... These guys lift way more than Hart's, and he's just going to clean this army up. Wow. Hart now... That's it. That's all he's got. Another wave of Marines is going to come out, but his main base is effectively mined out. He needs to lift this off, move it to his third, and try to drag this out. But with 3-3 starting, when you only have +1 attack, didn't we see this in that sexy hold that Bomber made yesterday against Czech? Like, it is so hard to kill someone with this much better upgrades than you.
Unfortunate for Hart here as well. Picks up a couple of units. They won't be participating in this battle, and just like that, after a single best of 3, Polt will once more advance to the round of 8 in WCS America Premier League for the 5th time in his career, for the 5th season in a row as well. The only time he wasn't able to do it was season 1 of 2013. And Hart is going to have to mentally prepare for his final series of the day, where he will go up against Neep once more.
Yeah, really nice play. Polt has, I think, when you look at the way that those build orders played out, he got a little bit more from that mine drop than Hart got out of his Banshee. And he also defended against the big drop that Hart tried to make when his stim finished with the tanks, with the medevacs. he just defended it a little bit better. And
I really wonder how that game would have played out. This was a really cool fight though, because Polt had so many forces in his natural that were a little late to the party, and for a second it looked like it was going all right for Hard, but Polt just did a really good job in not overextending on either side. Look how well he did that. He kept units alive on both sides, and of course in this moment Polt knows that he's almost money already because he's been mining of that third base for so incredibly long.
Yeah, and keep in mind, as you mentioned at this point, the 2-2 upgrades kick in, which just makes Polt, his whole army, a hell of a lot better than Hard's. There's not really much else to say, and at that point it becomes very easy to break through and clean up. So Polt, once again, secures himself another top 8 finish in WCS America Premier League. I don't think anybody is surprised by this. And now we do have a rematch between two players that did our first series.
Yeah. One final question about that last game, Nate. I wonder how that game would have played out if that first clock Banshee that Hard made, if he just rallies it across the map like we see some Terran players often do. Do you think he will take too much damage at home to somehow justify that decision?
It's tricky. The most standard follow-up to any type of early drop plays to build a... You always get a Viking, like at least a Viking in case the Banshee shows up. You don't typically want to drop your Mule. You want to make sure you have at least one scan and one Viking. So that worst case scenario, you buy yourself some time for either A, your Raven to finish, or B, you to get a missile turret. And it can be tricky, but I think keeping the Banshee at home to defend is only really nice if you can get a good position on it. Because the thing is, when you have a Banshee defensively, you can't just you can't just have it attack because it's still a very flimsy unit. And we saw on Overgrowth, Banshee died to the 6 Marine drop because it's just it's not going to kill all those Marines that quickly.
A little bit surprised to see Polt take such a decisive victory over Hard. Hard has been playing phenomenal in some of the other matchups, and I think even his TvT is pretty good. But and he played very well against Neep. He's going to have to go up against Neep once more. That is going to be the final match of the day, but of course not before. We're going to hear from Cameron, who is standing with our winner Polt, who made it to the round of 8 for the 5th time in his career.
Thank you, Roddy. Polt, first of all, congratulations on making it to yet another round of 8. Now, some of the people at home were wanting to know how you think during some very specific times in the match when things are happening. And I wanted to know, during Hart's Doom drop on Overgrowth, where you decided, I'm just going to let him take out most of my infrastructure, and I'm just going to send about 20 Marines up to his base. What's going through your mind when you make that decision?
Actually, it was totally my mistake. I didn't want him to take half of my buildings. I mean, I was aware of that Doom drop, so I put some like 12 or 13 Marines in my base, but it was kind of out of position. And actually, I was seeing at the time my third base, that harassment, so it caught my eyes off. So, but no matter what, I had my 4 medivacs in his base, so I was sure, even if I lose most of my buildings, if I success to save my base, at least my natural, then I would win, and well, that went well.
All right, well, it definitely worked out for you, even if it was a mistake. Now, as far as looking forward to the round of 8, are there any players that you're looking forward to playing against, or any that you hope you don't have to?
Do I know who I play?
Well, no, not yet, but of the players who are left that could advance, is there anybody in particular that you might be rooting for or hoping that they don't advance so you don't have to play them?
Actually, I don't mind to play against anybody. I just care about the finals. I just want to play very, very good players, one of the best players. I want to meet that player in the finals.
All right, a man with his eyes on the prize. Now, at Kobayashi Maru sent in an interesting question to me on Twitter. He wants to know if you think that meching is still viable given some of the recent patches against any of the races.
Meching is, I think it's still a pretty strong option. I mean, well, I think it's just up to your preference. Like, it's very different from TvZ or TvP. In other matchups, I can't really go mech because it's too easy to be defeated. But in TvT, I think it's relatively even. So, but I just personally prefer to play Bio. Everyone knows that, so I don't play mech.
All right, well, congratulations once again. We'll look forward to seeing you in the round of 8. For now, we're going to go ahead and check in at the social corner where Josh is over there. Take it away.
Thank you, Cam Doza. Congratulations to Captain America. Polt continues to the round of 8. Last time in Season 2, he lost against Hyun, so I think Polt maybe wants a rematch. Checking it out on Twitter, people are going crazy right now using that hashtag WCS. Topher Dahl says, Polt is just amazing. He's a very amazing player. That control is phenomenal. The Candy Lady on Twitter saying that as well. The control on this guy, Polt, is so good. We congratulate Polt, but that is not the last match of the day, ladies and gentlemen. We have the rematch of Neeb versus Hart. Hart still can make it to BlizzCon. He has to make first place. Neeb is fighting for the pride of USA. With the WCS points set at 2,000 for first place, if Neeb was able to go the distance, he would not have enough points to go to BlizzCon, but I'm sure he'd love to get a chance at that first place prize of $25,000 for WCS America Season 3. If you have more questions about the products that Newegg is showing with those promo codes, make sure to check out our Twitch page down below. Go ahead and scroll down or hit esl.gg/Newegg Esports for more information. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the final match of the day. Stay tuned.